Well, this is what I've always said, that, you know, they go to the movies and a preacher or an officer brings the news, and so that wasn't the way it was with me. It was a 15-year-old boy on a bicycle was what it was. And I think that that was probably more prevalent than any officers or any preachers or whatever coming. I took this job with the Western Union, delivered telegrams, and my brother was in the Navy, my older brother was in the Navy, and he was over in the Pacific. And he had been a Western Union telegraph boy. And they came and literally asked me if I'd take the job. And they knew it through my brother who had been there. But he was in Oak Park rather than in Maywood. And I took the job, and that was like 75 cents an hour, which was, you know, much better than a half a buck an hour. But again, I have to say, it's not memories that I like to remember. And, you know, I had a lot of telegrams that were, you know, wedding announcements and birth announcements and so on. I don't remember those, but I don't think pardon me, I don't think I've ever forgotten any of the death telegrams that I delivered. Excuse my breaking up here a little bit, but again, I can remember virtually all of them. And there were quite a few. Because Maywood, you know, had the highest casualty rate in the United States per capita. And of course, part of that was all of the guys that got killed, the National Guard guys that got killed in the Philippines. But again, you know, when we heard, and Maywood heard about the Bataan Death March, well, every young man, whether he was 17 years old or not, tried to enlist, including me. I tried to join the paratroopers, and they were going to take me, and I forged my birth certificate, and anybody that wasn't blind could tell that it was a fake. But my parents found out about it and put a stop to it, you know, so they wouldn't let me go. But I knew a lot of those guys personally because I'd been there. They had a baseball team, and I'd been their scorekeeper. And, you know, I was maybe 12 years old, and I was keeping score for them on their baseball, softball, really. And they'd play like the local police department had a team, and the National Guard guys had a team, and they'd play against the policemen and so on. They had a little black star up in the corner of the telegram. Now, I know you've seen the movies where they have a black border or something, but that wasn't the way it was in Maywood. It was a little black star that told you it was a death telegram. And you were required to stay there until they read the telegram in case they needed help. And, you know, the reactions were so different all the time. I delivered a telegram to a fellow who I knew very well, and the family knew me. And I went up on the porch, and they come to the door and smiled. Hey, they used to call me Gene because my middle name is Eugene. Gene, what are you doing here? I couldn't speak. I just handed them the telegram. I couldn't. And they took it rather stoically, particularly. I think they must have had some premonition or some notion that. I delivered one to a black family down in Broadview, which is just south of Maywood a little bit, and they handed them they were all sitting, it was a warm summer night, and they were all sitting out on the front porch, and as I came up, they all ran away, except for the man in the family, and I gave him the telegram, and he opened it, and I waited for him, and so on, and he thanked me, and I went down on my bike and started riding back, and all of a sudden I heard this almost, well, how can I explain it? It's just moaning, groaning, that just carried for a couple of blocks, and I'll never forget that sound. That's probably the one I remember probably the clearest and the most. But I took a telegram to her that said her husband had been wounded in action in the European theater, and she fainted. And I was a pretty stout boy. I caught her, and I got her over to the kitchen table, and I gave her a cup of coffee, got her a cup of coffee. And I told her that, hey, it's not all that bad now. He's not in a muddy foxhole being shot at. He's in a clean hospital with the best doctors in the world treating him. He'll be home on convalescent leave before you know it. And I had her almost believing that the whole thing was a good thing. 3 days later comes the Black Star telegram saying that he's died of wounds. I started to cry. I couldn't help myself. And Mrs. Wolf, who ran the Western Union office, I said, I can't do it. And she says, well, you must do it. You're the only one. You're the only one we've got. And I said, I can't. You don't know what you're asking me to do. You don't know what I told this lady and she sits me down and tells me that she was on duty when the word came through that her husband had been killed. And she finished out her duty. She finished out her shift. She felt she owed it to him to do it. And she says, you've got people that are fighting over there for your freedom. You have a duty. You'll have to do it. So I get on my little old Monarch bicycle, and I head down Fifth Avenue, Maywood. This was the main drag in Maywood. And in those days, they had tire rationing and gas rationing, and it's night, and it had rained, and the pavement was all dark and wet. And I didn't want to go so bad. I got there, the house was on Washington Boulevard, just a little bit south of it. Got to the house and got to the door, and the young lady didn't answer. An older lady, much taller lady, answered it. She took the telegram and opened it and read it. And she tried to give me a quarter tip. And pardon me again, I pulled it, put the quarter back in her hand and folded her hand over it. Must have stood there for a full minute. If I live to be 1,000, I'll never forget that particular moment in time. Well, it wasn't too long after that I left the job there. The war ended in Europe, and I went down to southern Illinois in the crop corps to help pick the crops and so on. And I was in a little bitty town of New Burnside, Illinois, when Japan surrendered. And I'm sorry. Well, people were jumping up and down and shooting off guns and shooting, and I sat down on the post office steps and I cried like a baby. There was no more widows to make, no more orphans. And you got so you felt that you were almost killing them yourselves. You were the messenger, shoot the messenger. I was very sympathetic to all of them, And I don't think anybody more than me ever realized just the domino effect of the guy getting himself killed and then the widows, the orphans, the brothers, the sisters, the whole family that is affected, how badly it's affected. My father used to say, who was maybe the wisest man I ever knew, my dad used to say that you live your life like you're going to die tomorrow, you plan your life like you're going to live forever. And I always thought that was excellent advice to give.